Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. The REDSEC Battle Royale is here in Battlefield 6. And of course, one of the features of REDSEC is the fact that you can go through complete missions, or other squads can complete missions as well, and grant the lobby a custom weapon drop, or a custom loadout essentially. Then you can go through and get one of your custom built weapons in game. So you can actually have your setup, your desired build, and run the playstyle and the weapon that you want to have. And today I wanted to go through and break down the 5 best custom weapons and custom loadouts you want to be rocking here early on into REDSEC. Of course, if you are a completely free-to-play player just playing REDSEC, weapon leveling is going to take some time, so don't expect to have every single attachment we talk about here today right away. If you are a premium player and you also play Battlefield 6 multiplayer, leveling there is of course a lot more streamlined for this, but over time you'll be able to unlock quite a bit of this. And for what it's worth, even though we are focusing on the custom weapons here, there's a lot of ground loot that can hold its own just fine, just with overall how they balance the meta and the weapon tuning here. You can go through, you can obviously upgrade weapons with some of the upgrade kits as well and get some pretty solid stats on them too. So just because you don't have every single weapon that we talk about here today, or every single attachment, don't be too discouraged, because it's still very possible to hold your own even against some of these top tier choices so far. But first up here, I've got what I think is probably the biggest crutch in the game. I wanted to go ahead and get this one out of the way, but also it's just so satisfying to use. The M2010 ESR sniper. This thing is a beast. This thing can absolutely destroy in game. Sniping in REDSEC obviously is going to be a big deal. When you've got the distances that you're fighting at, across an entire Battle Royale map, sniping obviously is going to be huge. And this thing is so easy, so consistent, so reliable, so strong. It's absolutely my #1 sniping choice as it stands right now. So breaking down the overall loadout here, I won't lie, as good as the M2010 ESR is, I really find myself kind of fighting with what I want to do on this build, because there's a lot of different ways I want to go about it. First up here for the optic, everyone's going to rock a scope on this basically. This really is a matter of preference. I'm still going through and unlocking some here. I would really like to get to some of these more higher zoom level ones, the 8 times, the 10 times. I think those will be really viable, but of course you got to level up the gun quite a bit to get to some of those, and as slow as weapon leveling is, that can be a little bit tedious. So for now, I'm personally just rocking the 6 times scope. It works well for me. I like the optic, I like the reticle on that, so I rock that, but change that up however you see fit. I also go for a suppressor here. Now, if you're just leveling it up naturally, you do end up getting the standard suppressor at 21, which isn't too bad here. It's just going to keep you hidden off the radar in world, right? So that's obviously going to be huge. If you do have like the Phantom Edition, you've got the blueprint that I'm using here. It also just gives you the lighten suppressor, which is one of the better ones in the game. Now, it's not going to have the biggest impact on a sniper here, because it's usually meant for keeping it off the radar and everything, and improving recoil at the cost of hipfire accuracy. But in this case, it's a free suppressor that I have unlocked, so I'm just using it on this blueprint in general here. But I do like having that base suppressor on there for what it's worth. It's also a little bit cheaper as well, which is nice. Extended barrel's a must-have here. Getting that velocity stat up to 1000 just is going to make the bullet drop and the bullet lead a lot easier. And then you also stack the rangefinder on there, and I won't lie, it's kind of cheesy how you can bind this to be like your steady breath keybind, or your shooting keybind, so you're always automatically zeroed in. Basically, it makes sniping very easy, and I think does kind of lessen the skill gap there. But it's also insanely useful, so I'm using it. You can basically figure out exactly what the range is, and you don't have to account for aiming way above a player or way in front of a player. You can zero in on them and basically center mass or center head ideally, take that shot, and it's going to hit there. So that is a super important one here. I had leftover points with this particular build, so I do rock the stubby underbarrel just for a slightly better ADS speed. Makes it a little bit more aggressive there. I got 5 fast on here as well, again just because I had some extra points. We'll talk about why that is in just a moment. And then long range ammo here, standard ammo, but it does reduce that projectile drag, which is pretty important for obviously long range stuff. Now, there is another really important attachment in the form of the ADS bolt. However, it costs 30 points, but this allows you to rechamber while you're ADS'd. As it stands right now, when you're firing with this thing, you got to shoot, un-ADS, rechamber, ADS back in, shoot, un-ADS, which some people are fine with that. I don't think that's a killer by any means, not having this on here. I've already won a ton of games using it just as is. But that said, after you go through and you do level this up some, you can save some points by using the standard suppressor here, which, it's still going to do the same thing on a sniper, so you could get some points back there. You could also take off the stubby underbarrel if you wanted to, or even lessen the cost there, and just go to a standard mag and save some points there, and maybe mess around and end up with a build where you have a suppressor, the rangefinder, and the ADS bolt on there, if that's something you really value in your loadout. Again, I don't think it's a must have. It's definitely very convenient though for what it's worth. So that could be something you might want to look into there, adjusting your setup. Again, this is just a basis, you know, a recommendation here. There are so many different ways to build things out, and especially when it comes to other guns that we'll be talking about here, snipers may be a little bit more straightforward, but it's not a one size fits all here in the Battlefield meta and in the RedSec meta. There's a lot of variety across the board, but the M2010 ESR is a beast so far. Nice rhyme. Next up here, I've got the SL9. We talked a lot about this one pre-Battle Royale, pre-RedSec here is one of the weapons I had my eye on as a really good SMG. And safe to say, I'm glad I was right on this one. It feels fantastic. I mean, you guys can see, yes, controlling the recoil here, I'm managing that, but this thing is a laser beam, incredibly versatile for an SMG here. One of my favorite ground loot weapons you can find as well, especially if you upgrade it. You can get the crazy 60 round extended mag, like, or 55, whatever it is. It feels fantastic. And this thing for close range fights, for some sniper support, even insanely good. There's a lot of building fights in this game, of course, especially late game. This is going to be one that holds its own tremendously. First up, I like the basic iron sights. I find those to be very, very clean, so I rock with those, and it's going to save me some points that I can use elsewhere as well, which I think is pretty nice. Blue laser, very important laser, I think, in general, either form of it, helping out with your hip fire accuracy, which you're going to be doing a lot with an SMG, of course. It also gives you an improvement to ADS accuracy while moving, so when you're strafing, the spread is not going to be as annoying, and that is a huge deal across the board. So that's a super important one. I've got the CQB suppressor on this one, going to obviously keep me hidden, but it's not going to hurt any hip fire like some of these other suppressors do. The standard reduces hip fire accuracy, long suppressor reduces hip fire accuracy, lighten does more of the same there. So yes, it's a little bit more expensive, but also it's not going to penalize me in any way. It's only giving me an advantage, which I think is very, very important. Heavy extended barrel on here is clutch, better velocity. So when you're fighting in the mid-range there, the gun's going to feel a little bit more consistent, and your accuracy is better over sustained fire. So again, the spread not going to be as noticeable here, which kind of turns this thing into a laser beam. I got the angled underbarrel on here in this case, better recoil control, and a slightly faster transition to ADS, which is obviously nice for a more aggressive weapon like this for sure. I do only have the 30 round extended mag, which even in quads can be a little bit tricky, can't lie there. You just really have to be smart with how you're going about the fight. We do have some reload helpers on this class as well, but for that 60 rounder, which is ideal for, you know, quads, it's 55 points. I'd basically have to gut the weapon everywhere else just to have an extended mag, and I'm not for that. Now, if you do find this as ground loot, you can use an SMG upgrade kit and get that 60 round extended mag, and that's solid because that's just a ground loot one. It's not going to be the guaranteed ideal build anyways, but really convenient. So you could always try this, you know, pair this with a sniper, and if you get the ground loot one, upgrade it, and then you're like kind of living in the best of both worlds, right? I do just use standard ammo on here for what it's worth, and then as mentioned, the mag catch for a slightly faster reload with that smaller magazine size. We can just get that reloaded a little bit quicker than back into the action, but this is definitely a phenomenal close range option, and honestly a really consistent mid-range and sniper support choice as well. And by the way, as we are breaking down all the weapons, all the setups here today, if you guys enjoy this video, you find the information helpful, do me a favor, drop a like. It's always seriously appreciated. It really does help grow the channel, and again, I cannot thank you guys enough for all the support on the content over the course of the past few weeks. And if you're new to the channel, you want to ensure you are always up to date with everything going on in the world of Battlefield, whether we're talking RedSec here, multiplayer, there is so much going on, so much to come as well. You're not going to want to miss anything, so be sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on those post notifications. Right now, just over half of you guys watching the videos are not subscribed to the channel, and of course, we're getting closer and closer to 1 million, less than 5,000 subs away. So if you want to help us on our journey to that, definitely hit that sub button so you can always stay informed. Next up here, we have maybe the easiest weapon in all of RedSec, the AK-205. Obviously, gunplay in this game, and especially here in RedSec, has a skill gap. The AK-205, not so much. I mean, you can see here, this thing is a laser beam, one of the lowest recoil guns in the entire game, and this isn't even the max recoil control setup either for what it's worth. Of course, because it is so low recoil, they have to balance that out some, and that means it's not going to be the strongest, hardest hitting gun in the world. But that's okay, because accuracy is more important than damage in a lot of fights. You can have the best damage in the world, but if you're hitting 1 out of 8 shots, you're not going to get as many kills as someone who has lower damage but is hitting 7 out of 8 shots, right? So that's going to be a huge deal in this overall setup. Here for the optic, I really like the ROM 1.75 times. I use this on a lot of guns. It's like an aim op from Call of Duty if you're coming over from there. really clean optic. But again, if you want to change this is something you enjoy more, absolutely go for that. Here, just rocking the long suppressor helps again with that recoil control, not as much as like a converter or a brake would do, but still keeps me off the radar. Hurts the weapon sway a little bit, but I didn't find that to be a huge hindrance in my testing, so wasn't too worried. After you level this thing up, go for the lightened suppressor. It's going to help out with control and not hurt the sway. So you got to get to this to 38, which will take a long time, but after you eventually get there, that'll be the go-to there for sure. Heavy barrel in this case, better accuracy over extended periods. That's obviously going to be clutch for any full auto weapon here. I go for the 6H 6.4 vertical underbarrel. In this case, it's going to do significant recoil control, makes a laser beam even more of a laser beam, hurts the ADS accuracy. Again, not something I found to be a huge hindrance, all things considered, especially if you are doing tap firing, which most players should be doing over range to begin with. This will still hold its own just fine there. 36 round extended mag, that's going to be plenty for duos or quads. They're duos especially, and you can even get by with that in quads as well, just fine. Standard ammo on there. Then I did have some leftover points, so I decided to go for the mag catch for that slightly faster reload speed. I've also got a leftover 5 points here as well, so if you ever wanted to, you know, switch out the extended mag just for a basic one and run something like a light, or if you really wanted a laser or something, you could absolutely mess around with that as well. But yeah, this was a really reliable build just because of how straightforward this weapon ultimately is. Following that, we've got absolutely the highest skill gap weapon on the list here today, but this thing is so rewarding to use, the SVK 8.6 DMR. This thing obviously has a little bit of kick to it, right? But as you can see, it's got the damage. If you played Warzone back in the day during Cold War and you remember the DMR zone, this thing is probably the closest that we're going to have here in REDSEC to replicating that. This thing is a monster. It is so strong. You can get a couple of quick taps on an enemy and it recenters really well. Like obviously there's a decent bit of kick there, but that recenter is not too harsh. So even if someone's like mounted behind cover or they're only peeking out a little bit on like a head glitch or something, you can really, you know, over time, learn this weapon, learn how it behaves, learn the spam speed you want to approach, and have a weapon that just destroys enemies. I was running with this a little bit, and it just is so complimentary, especially if you're fighting with your squad. You put out 1 to 2 shots with this while your squad's also fighting, and those enemies stand no chance whatsoever. Here for the scope, since obviously this is meant to be more of a range-based weapon, I got a 4.5 times. Again, if you like something more, feel free to go ahead and switch over to that. Standard suppressor here in this case, so we're still staying hidden and stealthy there, all things considered. Extended barrel on here for that better velocity, 900, gonna be sitting pretty there. Still will be some bullet drop and bullet lead for what it's worth. If you are continuing to level this thing up at 38, it's gonna take some time to get there, but at 38, the rangefinder obviously gonna be especially useful in a situation like this, but you gotta put on a lot of time. Like I'm only level 10 and I have a really useful setup. If I go through and I get this all the way to 38, though, it becomes even more efficient, but that's not to discredit how good this setup is, even at weapon level 10. Vertical alloy under barrel on here, slightly reducing the recoil. Again, as you're leveling this up more and more, you can get this up, get the classic if you want that. You can even go to the ribbed pretty early on if you're not doing a ton of strafing for what it's worth. So adjust this as needed as you continue to level it up. And if you're super concerned about that spread while moving, you can opt for others. And if you're not too concerned about the spread while just simply ADSing because you are tap firing and not spamming necessarily, there's plenty of solid options there as you go through. The only real limiter with this thing, outside of it being semi-auto and, you know, a little bit more recoil there, is its magazine capacity. You only get 10 rounds, which is not a ton, but the damage is so good on this thing that you can get some knocks and have plenty of time to reload and not feel like you're super stressed. Or of course, switching to your secondary is faster than reloading. You could switch over to your SL9, your other SMG, whatever your ground loot might be in this case to complement this thing. It is a little bit of a red flag, but it's not a deal breaker by any means. Again, I also got standard ammo on here for what it's worth. Long ranges, you are leveling it up. Again, 37, you got to do a lot of work to get some of the really strong things, but even just as it stands right now in a relatively minimal state, the base SVK is just that good that it absolutely is one of the better choices if you've got the patience to master a semi-auto gun like this. And then lastly here, we've got a classic that I'm sure a lot of players are already very familiar with, especially if you've been playing Battlefield 6, the SGX. This is, of course, the first SMG you end up unlocking, and it is a reliable one. Relatively low recoil, super aggressive, phenomenal TTK, especially in the ranges where you're going to be fighting the most with this thing, up close and personal, late game, pushing buildings, whatever the situation calls for there. Love this thing. Again, I think the iron sights are pretty clean, so I just rocked the basic sight and I saved some points there while doing doing so. I do go for the max blue laser in this case, as you are leveling it, getting up to 27. You can also get the slightly cheaper one, but both here will end up helping out with your hip fire accuracy. The more expensive one a little bit more than the 20.1, but then also the better accuracy while moving or strafing. So important at the end of the day. So either blue laser there is going to be great. Again, just have the standard suppressor on here. Once more, as you're going through leveling things up, you can get some of the other ones, but the CQB suppressor also being 10 points more. Once you level it up to about 27, you can switch to the other blue laser if you want, and then use that and the CQB suppressor if that's something you're interested in. But for now, even though it does hurt your hip fire accuracy, having the more expensive blue laser here, the 120 milliwatt, kind of makes up for that and counters that out. Extended barrel on here as well, helping out with some velocity there, again, just for some of the mid-range, making the gun feel a little bit more consistent overall. We've got the ribbed vertical in this case, moderate recoil reduction. It does hurt your ADS accuracy while moving a little bit, so for that reason, as you're leveling it up, if that's something that really concerns you, personally, I didn't feel like that really hindered my gameplay too much, and do a lot of strafing just naturally. I really wasn't noticing situations where it's like, okay, my bloom destroyed me there, because SMGs just feel very consistent as far as accuracy goes to begin with. But if you're leveling it up some, you could also switch over to, you know, some of the other ones that are just going to hurt accuracy while ADSing, if that's something you really are focused on, you know, heavily in your builds, or something more simple like an alloy vertical, even an angled as you're going through, and really leveling it up here could be viable as well. It's relatively easy to use to begin with, so any underbarrel is going to be serviceable to a certain extent there. I did just go for the standard 30 round mag just because of you know, where I'm at with points on this thing. You could go for a fast mag if you want to switch some things out elsewhere, but 30 felt sufficient for what it's worth, just because this thing kills so quick. Even in quads, you'll have some time to reload, and then standard ammo on there as well. But yeah, this thing incredibly straightforward, very easy to use, and very satisfying. Quite frankly, that's all the guns on here today, with the exception of the slightly higher skill gap SVK. You've got some phenomenal choices, and this is just 5. There are so many guns we can talk about, and we'll continue to talk about here in the coming days and weeks, breaking down category by category, certain play styles, long range, close range, whatever the case is. So be on the lookout. We've got a lot of content inbound if you guys want to stay up to date with everything going on in the world of Battlefield. News, updates, tips, tricks, loadout guides, you name it, you'll find it right here. So feel free to hit that subscribe button, turn on those post notifications, and if you enjoyed this video, be sure to drop a like on your way out. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you later. Peace out.